Okay. Hey there. I'm going to give just a minute while I am getting connected. Let other people join for people that were wanting to join. In true fashion, I'm just going to share true transparency. I had a call that ends right at the top of the hour. This is what my neurodivergent brain does. And it's happened now, I think, 3 times. My call ends at the top of the hour, and this call starts at the top of the hour. And we all know that doesn't work, right? We need transition time for sure. So I don't leave a transition time, and I will going forward. I'm also going to make sure I can see comments. Great. We have live chat. So today's topic is on question everything. I have notes because usually I need my notes to get myself started, and then we can take it away from there. So what do I mean by question everything? I'm just going to read the intro to this call so that you know kind of where we're starting, what we're talking about. There are so many experts out there. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of coaches who have neurodivergent brains or who have ADHD. And they are getting advice from so many different people in the world, right? So there are experts, whether it's marketing or whether it's how to build your business or whether it's, the best way to make your day most productive. Everybody has an opinion. And with the internet, there's so many opinions out there. This being another one, right? I'm just offering another one. What I want to really highlight is there is not one way to do something. And when an expert has a solution for you or is offering to you a way to do something, what it really means is their belief in what they are teaching is stronger than your belief in yourself and what you know. I want to say that again. It just means that their belief in what they're teaching is stronger than your belief around that at that moment. So if we step into that and explore that a little bit, what it really points back to is self-trust, right? So learning to trust yourself and that you'll know what's right for you. It is paying attention to those little like nudgings that we get, the promptings, the gut promptings that we get. So yes, you're going to explore. Yes, you might listen to what someone's teaching. But if something doesn't resonate, meaning it doesn't connect for you naturally, you're not like, oh, that sounds like it makes sense. That really resonates for me. Feel free to move on by. Just because many people find what they teach helpful doesn't mean it's going to be helpful for you. There are so many different brain types in the world, right? So they might be teaching to a different brain type. It just might not be a system that is helpful for you. Let's see. That includes me, right? I love to have an opinion on things and I teach lots of things, but I am always like, if it resonates, pick it up. If it doesn't, feel free to leave it where it's at. It's not that I believe everyone is going to be helped by like what I think. It's that it's an offering, it's an opinion. It's one of many. Maybe you haven't heard this one before, so it's something to consider. Real change really does have to start with you. So when you shore up who you are, what you believe, what you value, and then you go looking for systems or like a way to do something, you actually like strengthen your discernment muscle and you give yourself permission and the ability to decide if you're going to continue something or not, if you're going to try something or not. You tend to not make it mean if you do it and it doesn't work, something's wrong with you. You tend to then make it mean, oh, that sounded great, but not my thing. That wasn't really the thing that I was looking for. And then you move on to the next, right? When you are someone who is believing everybody else knows better than you, what happens is when their thing doesn't work, or if it doesn't work, the tendency is to make it mean there's something wrong with you. There's a problem with you. And as someone with a neurodivergent brain, we do not need any more of that. There's enough. We give ourselves that message enough, and we've received it enough times in our lives. We don't need to continue to perpetuate the belief that something is wrong and like in some way we need to be fixed. So real change starts with you. Let's look at some beliefs that are out there, some things that are taught that can be problematic or not helpful. The first one that I'm going to address, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, we're going to look at a few of these beliefs first. So the first one I want to look at is the statement that the first 100K is the hardest, right? Have you heard this from people who are teaching business? The first 100K is the hardest. I remember hearing this before I had made six figures in my business. And what I remember was when I would think that thought, so basically they shared it as a fact. My brain listened and believed it as a fact until I had evidence to the contrary. And then I was like, actually, I don't know that that's true. That is someone's thought. So what happens is originally that quote, the first 100K is the hardest, was shared in regards to net worth, and it was a mathematical equation. So it was a fact, it was data. So when it comes to like net worth and saving to $1 million, let's say, the first 100K is often the hardest because you are growing from nothing and you don't have any money earning interest. Once you generate the first 100K and you're moving to generate the next 100K in savings, you have 100K that is working for you, gaining interest while you are actually working to also save the second 100K. So there was factual information in the quote, the first 100K is the hardest. It was a fact for sure. Again, when it was in talking in regards to net worth, it is data driven and it is true. Think about it. If you have zero and you're trying to save 100K, you're going from zero. There's like little to no interest happening. Once you've saved 100K and you're saving to 200K, you have interest that is working in your favor. So the time that it takes for you to save that second 100K is going to be shorter. When you have 200K and you're going to save that third 100K, it's going to be reduced even more. The time is going to be reduced because you have interest of 200K working for you along with your saving efforts. So it is true in regards to net worth and saving. The first 100K is the hardest. Where I would call it into question is when there are business mentors that are teaching the first 100K is the hardest. It is a belief that can keep someone hopeful. It can keep them in the game. So it can be helpful, but it's not factually true. It's not like data driven. There's not math behind it like there is when we're talking net worth, right? And so it is a belief. It is a thought. And I think it's just important to like realize that and decide how you want to think about it. How does it make you feel if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur? How does it make you feel if you're believing the first 100K is the hardest? I'm going to offer it depends on your circumstances. So if you're just starting out and you haven't created 100K yet, when you believe that, you may feel relief. And here's why. You may literally be struggling to build in the beginning and believing that the first 100K is the hardest, kind of ... The like add-on sentence, add-on thought to that might be it only gets easier after this. And then you might feel some form of relief. If you change that circumstance as an entrepreneur, let's say you're in year 2 or 3 and repeating, right? Consistently creating that 100K, you might feel differently about that depending on what your circumstances are. So I would caution you, caution's a strong word, but be aware that it is common practice for business mentors to teach facts, things that are maybe factual in one context, but are really a thought or a belief in the other. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to think, why might that be a problem? I think it comes back to the inherent biases, right? We all have biases. Biases are just preferences. It means that we are biased towards one thing versus another. I am biased towards chai tea over coffee. I prefer drinking chai tea to coffee, right? I am biased that way. We all have biases, and biases inherently serve the people who have them. So the things that I am biased for or against usually are in my best interest, right? And so when someone is offering a blanket statement as a teaching and as a fact, I think it can be really helpful to question, ask yourself, is this true? Right? So the first 100K is the hardest. Is it true for everybody? How might it not be true? Like, where is it helpful to believe it's true? These are ways we can like question everything. Um, that belief in particular, when we're looking at who does it serve, often that belief, that thought serves people who are selling higher ticket items, higher ticket products, and they want to keep people engaged, right? People who haven't made it yet, to stay in the game, to generate hope and believe. If someone's believing the first 100K is the hardest, it's kind of motivating because it's like, okay, if I can just get through this, it'll get easier on the other side of this. I think a lot of the time in network marketing, you kind of see this energy of like building to this level is the hardest. And once you get there, it's like easy going. And like that is not a fact. It is a thought. And you can choose using your discernment if it's a thought that serves you or if it's a thought that's not serving you. So that's the first belief. Let's look at another one. Again, I made notes for the ones I wanted to address because working memory challenges. Okay, there isn't better than here. Who has heard this, right? The statement. So there, wherever you're headed, is not better than here. Again, I just want to offer there's not a problem inherently with that statement, but I think our brains, when things are taught, especially when they're taught from someone who has already achieved something that you want to achieve, I think it's helpful to question everything, right? When someone teaches something as a fact, I think it's helpful to question, is this factually true or is this a thought, something that they believe that therefore by default I'm believing because they believe it and they've created the result I want? I would encourage you to ask, like, who is it serving? Who does it serve to believe that there isn't better than here, right? It's often used as a way to convince people to like be satisfied with where they're at while they continue to move towards what they want, but not to rush. It's often said by people who have already achieved the result. And so, of course, it makes sense from that comfortable place to say, let me just tell you, here is not better. Because the truth of the matter is, how do I want to say this? Let me back up a second. I think it's less about that. It's more about just you being able to question for yourself, is it true? And is it serving you? So when you are believing, if you like think the thought right now, there isn't better than here, how does it feel in your body? What is your reaction to it? I know in some moments when I would think that thought, the feeling was like relief until my questioning brain started thinking about it more. And then I was like, no, actually, wait. There are some instances where there absolutely is better than here. Part of it is why I have the soapbox, right? Because I think I'm going to come back to the statistic that I quote often. A study was done maybe 10, 15 years ago now, where there was a direct correlation between earnings and quality of life. So the more that someone earned, the higher their quality of life was. And they improved like at an equal rate up until an amount. The amount was about $75,000. Again, this was like 10 to 15 years ago. So with cost of living, I'm sure that number has changed. But there was studies showed there was a direct correlation between improving your quality of life, the more that your income increased up to a certain amount. After that amount, it was shown that there's not a direct correlation. In fact, sometimes quality of life decreased the more that someone earned. So there is a tipping point. But for someone who is like under that 75K point for the purposes of this conversation, right? We're going to use the old data number. For sure, wherever there is going to be better than here for them, right? So that statement isn't a blanket statement for all humans in the world, although it is often taught as though it is. So what I want to encourage you to do, again, with this call, is just to realize just because something is taught or said does not make it true. Really do your due diligence, your research, check in with yourself. If something's not resonating, look in a little bit further and question it. Look for the evidence. Like, where is the evidence that there actually might be better than here? And if you can find it, what it does is it gives your brain evidence that that is a thought that someone is thinking. And since they're teaching it, it's probably a thought that is serving them, right? And then ask yourself, does it serve me to believe that? Like, how do I feel when I think that thought? How do I feel when I believe that there isn't better than here? Because you are always going to be your number one kind of litmus test. You are going to know for yourself. When you have you had the experience of just something feeling a little bit off in your gut when someone teaches something, where you have a little bit of a pause or like a wait a minute, right? Sometimes we try to ignore it because we're so wanting to learn the solution, to learn how to get where that person is, to learn what they did, right? It's often different for everyone. We can learn skills, we can learn tools, we can learn all of those things, and it can be helpful. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but believing that they are going to have the exact recipe for us is just never going to be true. And if someone is trying to teach you that it is, it's an opportunity to question that, right? The title of this one is Question Everything. So I would question someone who is basically saying, no, this would work for everybody. This is applicable to all humans in the world. Let's look at another one. Okay. How many of you have heard money is an unlimited resource and it's always flowing your way? It's an affirmation that is often taught when it comes to releasing scarcity mindset and moving towards abundant mindset. I do think there's value in not picking up scarcity mindset and holding on to a more abundant mindset. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, it's very helpful. I do think our thoughts impact our earnings and our revenue and our money. But if something is taught or said as a statement, money is an unlimited resource and it's always flowing your way. First of all, how does that thought make you feel, right? Is it true? Is it a fact? Is there evidence that it's not always true? If there's evidence that factually it's not always true, what that means, it is someone's belief. It is someone's thought. Someone may really, really, really believe it. And it's not your job to try to convince them otherwise. It's our job, your job, to decide, do I believe that? And how does it support me if I do? Right? So if we just look at data or facts, what we would see is money is actually finite. It is a limited resource. There is so much of it created, printed. When we go in and just print more and more and more, which honestly has been done, it doesn't end up well, right? It's not unlimited. It's similar to time because we're in the construct of time. There's 24 hours in a day. We are born and then every human dies at some point. Time is limited. That is true. Labor is limited. I was reading this study about the number of workers that are employable in the US. The number was astronomically high. It was large, right? A number can be really, 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 really big and still not be unlimited. There's going to be a point where we run out of workers. Those 12 months and under, right? 10 and under are the only, when we get to the point where everyone is working except for those age 16 and under even, That tells us that labor is limited, land is limited. We have a lot of land, like large countries. Countries are large, many of them are. And it doesn't mean it's unlimited. At some point, like it will run out. That's why the price of it goes up, right? Because it's a limited resource. Raw materials, another example, limited resource. So, money, when it is taught like money is an unlimited resource, there is enough for everyone. That's just an untrue statement. There's simply not enough money to meet all of human needs and all of humans' desires. As humans, we are wired to always desire more, to always want more. Again, it doesn't have to be a problem. I'm not saying this or teaching this because it's inherently a problem. It's because it's not factually true, and people that are teaching it as factually true are biased towards believing it and have a bias towards wanting maybe you to believe it. And it's like question everything encourages you to take your brain and ask what might be the reason they would want me to believe that, right? Maybe it's to invest more so that you can learn to earn more because it's unlimited. Um, let's see. Let me go back to my notes for a second. When we pair limited resources with the tendency towards humans to have like an unlimited amount of needs and wants, there will be people that are left out like that without. That's just true. It's not meant to be discouraging. Again, it's meant to just teach like question everything. Someone who's teaching that's not the case. Um, what might be the reasoning behind that? Why might they be teaching that? It's not a scarcity mindset, it's a condition of scarcity, right? Both are present. There is such a thing as scarcity mindset. It's when we're thinking away like we don't have enough. Like, we're really dropping into the belief that, like, what I have is enough, I need more, I can't fix this. That is a scarcity mindset. But then also the condition of scarcity does actually exist, which means, like, there's 24 hours in a day, and so when we get to 25, we've actually started on day 2. That's the condition of scarcity when we're looking at hours, right? Often, especially when it comes to this, data or this statistic, those who tend to be left out often are people in a marginalized groups because systems that are in place have been set up to not necessarily have their best interest in mind. Marginalized groups, there's many. Like I talk a lot about ableism, sexism, racism. There's many. Gender identity, like so it doesn't matter. You can choose. I'm not like I don't have preference towards one or the other. I'm just saying it is worth considering that the experience isn't the same and that belief or that statement isn't true for all humans on the planet. And when you have someone believing that it is and then like not being able to figure out the thing, the tendency is then for them to take personal responsibility and question, wonder, what's wrong? What's wrong with them? What are they doing wrong? Why can't they fix this? Sometimes there is something that they can do to fix it as the individual. Sometimes it needs to be them doing something as an individual as well as a societal fix, like collective fix, right? Sometimes both need to come together. I think there are people that kind of straddle that middle place, um, and it will take a shift for both. And then there are people who don't deal with being in a marginalized community and they're not straddling that middle place. They're to the just to the side of it, if that makes sense. Do we have any questions? I'm like going to come up for air for a second. I see there are some of you on here and I'm just like I can go and forget to breathe. Any comments or questions? I'm curious also, if you are able to join live on the call, or if you're watching the replay, you can always pop it in the comments. But what about the topic piqued your curiosity? What about the topic brought you to the call? What is it that you're wanting to learn more about or hear more about when it comes to the concept of questioning everything? feel free to share in the comments. That would be great. As you know, if I know you, I do really well with engagement and live interaction. It's my preference. So those are just a few money beliefs that we started with. Let's take a look at some productivity beliefs, right? Because there are also productivity beliefs that are out there that are taught. One of them is don't check your email as soon as you wake up, right? That's a big no-no for productivity. Productivity coaches will say, don't do it. You will drop in the rabbit hole. You will be less productive. You will start working on things that don't need to be worked on. And it's a blanket statement. Like, if you are going to be a productive person, here is a rule to follow. Don't check email as soon as you wake up. I would like to offer, it's true that checking email more often has been shown to contribute to increased levels of stress. So like if you're a person who is checking email all day, studies have shown that that could be more stressful than if you check, say, 3 times a day or less often. Whether or not you check first thing in the morning is just really an individual preference. And so for some people, it's a circumstance, right? So in like the model that I teach and work with, it would go on the circumstance line, checking email. For some people, the thought might be, oh no, I'm down the rabbit hole. Or they might not even have a thought about it, right? They might just drop into the rabbit hole, get consumed, and start working. Like the thought might be, oh, I need to address this. It's urgent. And they might just start addressing one thing after another after another. For that person, it may not be helpful to check email first thing in the morning. For some people, I'm just going to offer checking email might actually give access to a thought that is supportive. For some of us, I'm going to put myself in this category as well. I pop into email in the morning. I check if there's like something that's urgent, extremely urgent, like what my brain would consider an emergency when it comes to like tech or something with a client, right? Something that I'm going to respond to and it won't take a lot of time, like a quick solution. And just checking and then getting out of my email gives me access to the belief or the thought, I've checked this morning, so nothing extreme has happened overnight. I'm good for a little while, and then I feel like relief and freedom to go move on to what my rock is for the day, what the main thing is that I want to work on. If I weren't to check in my email in the morning, I would be curious. My brain would wonder, like, is there something in there that I should be addressing? And so just having that distraction would actually make me less productive. And that is the case for many people. I'm not saying that's going to be the case for you because, again, my belief is there are not a lot of rules that are blanket rules, like one and done. I don't think there's one rule that works for all brain types. Whether you're neurodivergent, neurotypical, both, it doesn't matter. We're all humans, differently wired. So again, question everything. Someone teaches something, see if it resonates, play around with it a little bit, decide for yourself. I think the biggest thought that I would offer or belief that I would offer you to practice is I may not have it all figured out, but ultimately I know what's best for me. If you can get to a place of just believing that, almost like a pair of glasses, that becomes your filter. No matter who you're listening to, what you're learning, what you're trying, you always come back to yourself to make the decision on if it's working or not. And it's never about you. It's about, does what I'm hearing from the outside work for me? And if it doesn't, it's not because there's something wrong. It's because it's just not the thing for you. And that's okay. There are so many options in the world, right? Just as I said, so many humans in the world, there's just as many people who are teaching, sharing, coaching, all of the things. You will find your match. You will find someone that you resonate with. Even there, I encourage you to question everything. Question what they say. Try it on for size. Does it resonate? Does it work for you? Come back to yourself as like knowing ultimately if something is supporting you and helping to move you in a direction that you want to go in, or if something is less supportive and not moving you in a direction you want to go in. You are the only expert. That is true. Like you are the filter of expert here. And then anyone that you decide to listen to and learn from, they fall under you. For those of you that believe in a higher power, they might be the expert over you, right? That's the only expert I would put above yourself. And I actually think it's like partnered with you. So I kind of see you and God, you and the universe partnered together. That's how I see it for myself. Beyond that, any expert that you go to learn something, they are under you and they need to go through the filter of you. Like, is this right for me? Is what they're saying making sense? Okay, let's see. So we just talked about the email. Do what works for you. So it may be checking as soon as you wake up. It may not be. It may be like, it's the same way I talk about I'm more of an abstainer than a moderator, right? So for me, if I'm trying to like eat less sugar, it's better that I just don't have it in the house than to have it sitting there and try to moderate my behavior. It's just too tempting and I could do it, but it takes a lot of energy. I know this about myself. So I kind of identify as an abstainer. Like if I'm trying to go towards a goal, let me just like not surround myself with it. It makes it so much easier. As there's a giant tub of red licorice in the pantry that someone gave me, right? I'm like, keep thinking about it. All I should do is just like donate it or, yeah, get rid of it because it's too tempting. It takes too much energy to resist it. It doesn't have to be a problem. I just know that about myself. Same thing when it comes to like um, checking email or morning routines. What is best for you? What is your tendency? When you check, do you tend to drop in and come out 10 hours later? Or do you drop in, check for the things that need addressing, pop back out, and feel relief that you know there's nothing urgent in there? Which camp do you fall into? Another common belief or thing that is taught is you have to dress for the position you want. Full face, full fashion, whatever it is, will help you be more productive, right? That is a belief. It's someone's thoughts. It is taught like it is factual and true. And maybe because of like systemic conditioning, I would offer there are instances where it is going to be more helpful because you may be interacting with someone who has that belief. And so if you are not doing it, they might have belief about you. Has nothing to do with your productivity or your ability. It has to do with their biases. So like sometimes it may serve you to like show up for someone else's biases. I like, but being aware of what you're doing, right? And if you're working for yourself, when we're like dressing for the position we want, dressing up to show up, who that doesn't serve is the person who comfort is a productivity priority. For some people, the more comfortable you are, the more productive, the more capable of like showing up and actually sharing in a way that's authentic. I talked about this. It's been like a year and a half ago now, I think, but I was so ingrained with put your best foot forward. People, you always need to like, people may meet you just one time. You need to like put your best foot forward all the time, meaning like full makeup, all like the best clothes you can pull together. Like you really need to look the part was like really ingrained in me. And not doing that, even in my membership calls, felt so uncomfortable. At one point, I did the work of just being uncomfortable and learning to manage my mind around it. Like, I'm just going to wear a nice t shirt and jeans. I'm just going to show up in my sweatshirt and no makeup. And I'm just going to do what I do because I don't think it's tied to any of that. Show up in my comfy sweater. So for people where texture, like if you're sensitive, temperature, texture matters, it may not help you to be more productive to dress in a fancy looking outfit that like doesn't feel comfortable. It's a very kind of ableist statement. It doesn't take into effect that some humans are absolutely like more sensitive to others when it comes to like comfort levels and ability to like show up and work when they're not distracted by like what they're wearing or the amount of time that it might take to do that when time is already maybe a challenge, right? The managing of time. So when someone is teaching that, again, it can be helpful to consider and I think question like How do you feel about it? Does it serve you? Run it through your filter of discernment. Is it helpful for me to follow this advice? Is it harmful for me to follow this advice? It's going to be different for every human. So question everything basically means just that. Like, there is nothing that's off the table when it comes to like questioning the truth of it or the validity of it. As humans, we all have different thoughts, different beliefs. And often what is taught as factual is someone's belief. It's not factual. In fact, it's like so much of it is a thought or a belief. A lot of what's taught is not data driven, not true for everybody in the whole world. That's where I would say it's true, right? Provable in a court of law. Everyone in the world would tend to agree on it. If that's not the case, it means it's a thought, it's a belief. And when it comes to thoughts and belief, is it one that you want to choose to believe or not? Questions or comments? Now, I feel like we have a quiet bunch today. Okay, let me see. What else did I want to make sure that I mentioned? I have an example of question everything when I had an aha moment on it. It was back when I first was certified as a coach. And we were taught about the concept of 50-50 and how everyone experiences 50-50. So like nobody experiences 100% wonderful things happening in their life in the world. Everything is 50-50. Meaning there's going to be 50% good is not the word I want to use, but like 50% good, 50% bad. We're all going to have equal parts of it. And so at the time, I was in my certification program and I had just been taught this concept of 50-50, and so much was going on with the world. I think it was back when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee, trying to bring attention to Black Lives Matter. And like on this particular day, people were boycotting Nike because Nike had used them in some campaign and they were burning tennis shoes. It was all kinds of craziness. And I was kind of shocked, caught aback at so many comments around that of like how people were like, well, yeah, they shouldn't support Nike. Like what I was reading comments online, they shouldn't support Nike because like that's crazy. It makes sense that they're burning their tennis shoes because they should take an unbiased approach. I had so many thoughts, and I remember thinking the concept of 50-50 was so frustrating because is that individuals 50-50 or as a collective 50-50? And when we break it down, like I was like, I think for sure there's situations where there are some people in the world who are experiencing 20% of the what's the way that I want to say this? 20% of the support and resources, and there are people in the world who are like experiencing 80% of the support and resources. So when we say like 50-50, does it mean that like there's one person maybe that's going to get the 50% not so great and then another person who's going to get the 50% great? I was all in my head about I don't understand how this works out collectively. There are definitely people where I think it doesn't shake out evenly, 50-50. And a peer of mine asked the question. She was like, well, not only are you taught to, the concept of 50-50, but you're also taught the concept of question everything. So like, what if you applied that concept of question everything to the 50-50? Where does that land you? And it was like, all of a sudden I had so much relief. I was like, oh, right. 50-50 is someone's opinion and it's the way they teach something. It doesn't mean it's true. Like I get to question that as an individual. Fascinating that my brain hadn't realized that I could question it until that moment. But when I did, it opened up so much. Like all of a sudden, I stopped kind of wrestling with that teaching and decided how it made sense for me. And it felt so much better. And so I think that is really my goal or intention around having this discussion is just, I want to offer that to you. Just because someone teaches something, it does not mean it's true. For anyone that had never considered to question that, it's worth considering. It's helpful to consider. Thank you for chiming in, Dayon. So much in the personal development world has made me feel inadequate, not good enough, instead of the opposite. It actually has backfired. Yes, I think it happens a lot in the personal development world, as well as in like spiritual spaces. There's a lot of like spiritual bypassing, meaning like blaming people for their like circumstances, right? Too much placement on like individual responsibility and like, well, you just must not be thinking about this in the right way, or like not meditating enough, or not praying enough, or um like you must, it's like you can fill in the blank. You must not be fill in the blank enough to like direct it back to taking personal responsibility. And it's like, yes, absolutely, personal responsibility is an area where we are ability to affect the most change. We have so much control, and we can be empowered when we step into taking personal responsibility and changing what we can. And there are things in the world that are outside of that. And it's gaslighting, really, to have someone say, like, well, I don't know, but you just should, like, do you want to think about that? Do you want to think about that in that way? Because how is that helpful? And it's like, I don't know how else to think about it because it's true. And for someone to like redirect it back to taking personal responsibility for what is often a collective issue, um, is like the same. It's the equivalent of gaslighting, just in a professional scenario, professional situation. Yes, and there's always an and, because I line up right in the middle, right? We talked about this on our call yesterday, a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, which means I always have a big capitalized and between the two opinions. What are we missing? What are there any questions? Any questions around question everything? It sounds funny to say that. Is there something that you're struggling with or like having a hard time because it sounds like it's being stated as fact and you're like struggling with whether it is factual or not, or whether it's true or not? Any anything that comes to mind for you? I don't know if I have any more examples. We give just a second, see if anyone. Oh, the scarcity mindset. Hey, Lemma. Um, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna touch on it a little bit again, but I don't know if you heard at the very top of the call where I was talking about the difference between scarcity mindset versus the condition of scarcity, and that both actually exist. So, we can have a scarcity mindset, which means we are like leaning towards believing we don't have enough, we can't create what we want, um, we need more, it's impossible for me. So I can give examples of beliefs and thoughts that lean towards a scarcity mindset versus thoughts that lean towards an abundant mindset, which are like like things are coming my way. I'm going to show up and do the work and believe that like my turn is coming, like having a more abundant mindset. So like there is such thing as a scarcity mindset, but then there's also such thing as like the condition of scarcity is really where it started. And I think it's a good place to actually circle back to, because I think sometimes the teaching that, "Well, let's just take money," is unlimited, really serves people who are making and want to make unlimited, astronomical, that's my thought, amounts of money. No judgment. I'm, like, checking myself if I'm being honest with that. Maybe a little bit of judgment just because I think the teaching is not always helpful. Um, but I think the truth is there are always going to be people like, money is limited, and so, like, the more that some people have, the less that others will have. I just think that's true, and I think trying to put our head in the sand and not believe that isn't helpful for most people. I do think it's helpful for people who are making a bunch and want to continue to make a bunch. I don't think there's harm in, like, wanting to make more. I just think let's be honest about, um, that's not possible for everybody. If it were, everyone on the planet would be making as much as they want to be making. The reason that doesn't happen is because money is a limited resource, and it gets directed in channels towards certain people. Celebrities make a lot more. I use the example, athletes tend to make a lot more. So, anyways, I think, I think it's just helpful to be clear on what is a lack or a scarcity mindset versus what is true lack or scarcity, and, like, where do we stand with that? Also, like, I do hear people teach, right? Like, I wanna make a lot, but when I make a lot, it allows me to invest a lot. So, like, I'm changing the world in that way. The more money that gets into women's hands is the example that's been given, right? Or, like, the more it's going to be, like, spread out and shared, and it's like, yes, I do believe that to be true, and at a certain point, like, if that is what you truly believe, I would think there would be, like, an investment directly in, like, your direct employees making a certain amount, right? Like a livable wage. So I just think it's tricky. I think question everything. My brain questions everything. I don't just take for face value what someone is teaching and saying. A lot of the time, the emoji that's like thinking, the thinking emoji, I feel like I forever have the thinking emoji plastered on my face. You all don't see it. I can feel it there, the energy of it there, where I'm just like, "Mm," with what everybody is saying. I've been practicing abundance thoughts, like money is infinite, which has been helping, but now I'm having different thoughts. So the other thing that I paired with in the beginning, right, was like, if it's a thought that is helpful for you, supportive for you. So, like, if you have the belief money is infinite and it creates a feeling for you that feels supportive, it is a helpful thought. I am just saying, step into, it's kind of two separate things. Step into realizing you have the right to question things, and if a thought is helping you moving towards your goal, towards your result, by all means, we know, like, the thoughts that we think create feelings in our body definitely impact our outcomes, create our results. So I'm not teaching this to, like, judge. How do I wanna say it? Hold on. I'm not teaching it so that you use the information against yourself. I'm just saying often things are taught and we take it at face value and then use that information to beat ourselves up when our experience is otherwise. So I'm just like, if your brain is like, money is infinite and it has that thinking emoji, like, I don't know about that. But someone that you really trust is teaching it, I'd say question it, look at it. It's worth exploring, right? I love even let's just do a metacognition thing here for a second. I love that, like, on this call, you're like, "I've been practicing this thought, which has been helping. Now I'm having different thoughts. I'm going to say back to you, question what I am saying, right? I am not an expert for you. You are your own expert. I am just encouraging the conversation. I think the conversation around it is important. I think the transparency around it is important. It's not to say what I believe is what you have to believe. Does that make sense? I mean, I think it's a great example of the reason I'm even having this call is to like bring your discernment back to yourself. And if that thought, money is infinite, creates a feeling for you that is supportive and helping and moving you forward, by all means, it sounds like that's working for you, right? If it's not, that's where I want like to encourage you to question. If you try to think it because someone's teaching you to think it and you have trouble, like you're thinking it and it doesn't feel good in your body, you're like, I don't know if I believe that. Trust yourself enough to like resist and question the teaching. And that's what I'm teaching. I'm not trying to teach like one thought is right versus another. I'm just trying to take some thoughts that are commonly taught and show how they are thoughts and they aren't necessarily true data-wise. And you still get to choose which thoughts feel supportive for you. I just think the other side is often talked about like it's taught like it's a fact. And sometimes it's not helpful for someone. It doesn't create a feeling that's supportive for them. Does that make sense? So, like exactly what you're asking, it's an opportunity to double down and think the thought for yourself and see how it makes you feel and decide what you want to believe and why, right? Rather than like believing that maybe I have an answer for you that's right. I have an answer for me that's going to help me on my path. I am biased, as are you, as are every single person that listens to this call. Like we are by nature biased humans. It's not bad. It just means we have preferences and we all have different assignments, different missions, different means to an end. So that's why it's like I can't know for you. You know for you. Trust that you know for you. I do. Dayon, you said I struggle with mentors, coaches, leaders, elders, etc., who I'm trying to learn from, yet I'd like to keep my own discernment on what's proper for my path. How to approach getting help from others. Yeah, just that. Like I think just remembering to question everything, honestly, can help you come back to your own discernment and like intentionally decide. So like you're going to bring it in from these other people as data, but trust that you will know what is right for you. If something doesn't resonate, if something's not working, releasing the self-blame and the belief that something's wrong with you and that you need to fix something and just like their method that didn't work. That particular teaching from them didn't work. Maybe others do. Just remembering that you get to decide what you want to have stick and what you want to leave with that other person. It's just a skill you get to practice. And I'm going to keep saying it again and again. Nobody knows what's right for you except for you. It's every single person that listens to this, myself included. Nobody knows what's right for me except for me. And I have my reasons, right? And you'll have your reasons. And none of it's wrong. There are some of us in the world just who are more inclined to share loudly what we believe for most people to hear, many people to hear. And it's a beautiful thing. There's no like all good, all bad. Like the same teachings that I'm talking about that I learned from mentors, they have done things that have changed and impacted so many lives, mine included. I'm just like pulling a few that don't resonate for me. And I've used my discernment to decide that they don't resonate. And so I'm going to talk about them in a different way. But it doesn't at all take away from what they are doing in the world and the impact that they're having, even on me. Like we don't have to 100% agree with someone or 100% disagree. That could maybe be our ADHD, black or white thinking, all or nothing thinking. We can like agree with some of it and leave some of it on the table. Like there is no perfect mentor, no perfect coach, no perfect human, no one person who knows all of the right things for us. Only you will know that. That's how you are wired for yourself. Does that make sense? I hope that's clear. It's a tricky space to hold, right? Like in the middle, not trying to like discredit or bash anything. It's more like an encouragement. Like you can learn from amazing people and still you're going to know things about yourself and what they're teaching that only you will know and what only like what will apply for you. So like hold on to that personal power because you have it. You're born with it. It's yours. We all have it. Don't give that to someone away to someone else. Yes, constant practice for sure. For sure. Lemma, let's just where are you at with your money is infinite and your thoughts about it? Where have you landed after talking about it a little bit? I'm just curious if that makes sense, if it clarified it at all. We just don't want to use any teaching against ourselves. It's not helpful. So, like, if we have a teaching and we find it helpful, great. If we find a teaching from someone else that, like, we're uncertain about, don't take it and undo the teaching that we found helpful. We don't ever want to use things like against ourselves. We just want to continually add and run it through our filter of discernment. Yeah. You just have to decide what works for you. Totally. That is what it is. All right. That is the whole purpose of question everything. Decide what works for you. You know best, and you can learn skills and tools from so many people. You can get support from so many people, and just know ultimately, when it comes down to it, you will know what's best for you and do that. All right. That's it. Thanks for being here with me. So I'm not just talking to myself on these calls. All right. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Bye.